sure how Paul could have said it any different to us. In fact, he said, folks, I've come to understand that there's someone in our group, maybe several, that like to put out our information that should be kept as a family talking behind closed doors. And so it may get out, but I got to talk to you. We have to understand where we're coming from. And sadly, that's what took place, and got a lot of people up in upheaval over Paul in this situation. And frankly, and I hope I don't offend people, but I'm going to tell it as it is. I think Paul has done a great job in trying to uphold the Article I powers of Congress and also work with Donald Trump. And up until at least last week, he had told us he had been either meeting with or phone call with Donald Trump every 10 days at minimum, and felt that they were moving along on the policy issues very well. So it's one of those things that the Democrats know how, and the media, sadly, know how to get us into a family battle that ends up really splitting up the larger population of liberty-minded Americans that are out there that just want to see America become great again, and that's why they've moved over toward Donald Trump, because at the very least they think he wants America to be great. And Paul, I think, wants to help him, but it's difficult when these type of misconceptions develop.
Yeah, well, part of it is the fact that I think even some of our politicians are looking at these polls. Now, when Real Clear Politics put out their average of the polls, nobody is looking at the makeup of the participants in those polls, and they're all being heavily, I've seen them, I'm watching them, they're being heavily weighted Democrat, 3 points, 7 points, 15 points in some cases. So, of course, those polls are going to show Hillary Clinton. I think that's part of the bought, rigged, if you want to use that term, rigged media, who are trying their best to push Hillary in there because they're scared to death, I think, of Donald Trump. I mean, Donald Trump is something new. It's something abrasive. And the fact, I think, that he goes directly to the people, bypassing the media a lot of times, is what's scaring the media to the point that, hey, we may not be the strength and the power he used to be as the media if this guy can get in there and talk to the people without him. Because on social media, I'm seeing everything for Trump. When I look around, not only here in Michigan, I've spent a lot of time in Florida this year, I'm not seeing Hillary signs. I'm seeing Trump signs everywhere I go. When I talk to people, I'm not seeing people talk about Hillary. So I think, Paul Ryan and the rest of the Republicans who are a little worried about Trump and any down ballot effect it may have, I don't think it's really there, because I think people are on board the Trump train. I'm feeling more positive, Tim. 3-4 months ago, maybe not. But right now I am feeling so positive that Donald Trump is going to pull this out. I hope Paul's ready to work with him, because you know what? I think he's going to be our next president of the United States of America.
Well, from your lips to God's ears, and I hope the same, and that's why I continue to support Trump. But let me give you an inside story on that as well. When we do our polling, like I do in my district, it is often different than what we see from the national media polling. Because we're paying for polls that will really tell us the story, even if it tells us a bad story. And I have a pollster that has never been wrong, even when I lost in 2008. Sadly, he was dead on. And I believe he's still dead on in my race, and I'm very encouraged because of that. But I also know that other candidates do the same thing with pollsters that are telling them behind the scenes where they're at, and it's generally weighted a little bit more pessimistic than optimistic, and so we keep battling, but very realistic, and so that's what Paul's dealing with. For the most part, you're right, Gary. Thus far, our interior tracking polls in this district show Donald Trump leading. In the 7 counties in my district, he is leading, some more than others, but in other parts of the country, that isn't the case, and we've seen a little slippage for the first time in the last 2 weeks on some of our candidates, because as Paul had told us on several occasions, as well as our NRCC chair, Congressman Walden from Oregon, at that point, we weren't seeing Trump have any real impact one way or another on down ticket. In the last 2 weeks, we've seen several races in the United States that are targeted races. There has been a impact from some of the most recent things, and that's where they've got to watch. I know one of my colleagues chose to go away from Trump And I think he's been hurt now. And I know another one of my colleagues who chose ultimately to go away from Trump just recently, and that slowed down his decline a bit. So that's what Paul was saying. You've got to do what you got to do in your district, and you better know what your district is and what will work best. In mine, it's just right for me to stay where I'm at right now and keep pushing forward and hopefully help Trump in my district, even as I help myself to expand the lead if that's further possible in this race.
Good. Well, Tim, before we go, let's get one last thing. So we've got a lame duck session coming up, whether Trump is elected or whether Hillary is elected. Do we need to be worried about anything happening untoward in the lame duck session?
Oh, man, you sure do, especially regulatory-wise. They have begun to open the floodgates to complete regulations that have been in the pipeline, some of which I've been pushing back on from my committee chairmanship or subcommittee chairmanship position on key regulatory issues for the past almost 6 years. And now they're coming to fruition. Fall protection that I've been pushing back on that's going to end up hurting people out in the field, construction workers, et cetera, because it's a one-size-fits-all. The mandatory overtime provision for regulation for salaried employees bumped up over double the income rate from what it was. We all said it needed to be increased, but to double it is going to put people out of jobs, going to take their salaried positions away as well. And entities like University of Michigan have already said because of that rule, it's going to cost a 4% increase in tuition for their students to carry that on. And then certain nonprofits and human service providers, Easter Steels being one of those, it's going to cost them jobs and the ability to provide counseling services in a reasonable fashion, et cetera. So that type of thing is going forward. We've joint employer, and I just go down the line with stuff I think they're going to push on, and that's why I introduced legislation called the Midnight Rule that would keep any regulation from being initiated or consummated during the lame duck period of time, because the people have spoken it's time to wait for the next president to embark upon regulatory issues. So that's going to be there. As far as TPP, Paul Ryan has already said that that's not going to be taken up. So that's not a concern, at least I don't see it at this time. Other issues, as long as the Republicans control the House, I don't think the president is going to get anything through law, but on the other side of the ledger, it's very difficult to think we can get it through the Senate and the president either.
Okay.
So hang on.
Well, great, Tim. Thank you so much for spending all the time with us today, and maybe we'll get you on again even before the election again.
That'd be good, and everybody vote.
Okay.
Can't stay away. You got to vote.
You got it. Thanks, Tim. Take care.
Bye-bye.
All right, until next week, go to thedailydrift.com. Get the news you need to know. See you next week.